Let's continue our talk about archetypal hero, and we are going to look at Luke Skywalker, Simba, King Arthur, Moses, and William Wallace. 5 very different people from very different genres and time periods. And so look at this page in your notes, and I just want you to jot down little notes in each stage that we go through for each person. And so there might be times when I don't talk about one person with a certain stage, and that's okay. Just skip it. Just skip it. And so I filled in a few examples for you. We'll talk about unusual birth for each hero. And under Simba, I put there was a celebration, and his father is the king. And then under the leaves family stage, I put a little note that said father is killed, and he's forced to leave home. So that's just an example for you. Fill it in how you want. The point of this is to help you to see how across all these genres and times that these stories were written, there are very similar patterns of the journey that they go on, which is an archetype. Remember, we talked about that in the last video. So get your notes and listen along, and we'll start the PowerPoint. So it starts off with the unusual birth. So a hero's birth will always have an unusual aspect to it. Many heroes are born to royalty or in danger at birth. Either way, they are marked by these circumstances as different and destined for greatness. So you remember the beginning of Lion King? Simba's birth is being celebrated. Rafiki holds him up over the entire Pride Lands for everyone to see. Remember that classic part? So the unusual aspect of his birth is his royal status. His father, Mufasa, is the king of the jungle. Moses wasn't born into royalty like Simba, but he grew up in the Pharaoh's household. Ramses II had decreed that all Hebrew male babies under age 2 be killed, so Moses' mother placed him in a raft on the Nile, where he was found by one of Pharaoh's daughters. Although viewers of Star Wars have to wait till the second movie to find out the truth about Luke's birth, we get hints about his unusual circumstances, such as the fact that he lives with his aunt and uncle and he didn't know his parents. Lastly, we have King Arthur, who was not only born a prince, but his father used Merlin's wizardry to seduce Arthur's mother, the wife of another man. That's kind of odd. Now we're on to the next stage, where the hero leaves his family. Sometimes the circumstances are traumatic that force the hero to leave, as with Simba and the Lion King, or Wallace and Braveheart, both of whom lose their fathers violently. With Luke in Star Wars and Arthur in the Legends of King Arthur, the circumstances are more for protection than anything else. Either way, the hero must leave his home temporarily. Simba's father is murdered by Scar, which leaves our little hero helpless and forces him to leave his kingdom. But don't worry, because he comes back in the end. On the right side, you'll see a little portion of a painting by Michelangelo right here. It's in the Sistine Chapel. Michelangelo covered the walls and ceiling of his chapel with paintings depicting Bible stories so that people could see their heroes in action. It's pretty cool. So we have Moses. He also had to leave his home. And you probably remember what forced him out of Egypt. It was when he killed an Egyptian slave master in anger. So that's Moses with the sword at the bottom of that little painting. He's also shown at the top of the painting fleeing Egypt. Moses appears so many times in the same painting because Michelangelo tells Moses' entire life story in one picture. He did this because at the time, most people couldn't read, and they depended on images to understand their religion. Now, he was forced out of his land after he killed the Egyptians. So Michelangelo showed the story of this hero visually. Just like in modern-day movies, we show the hero in action. The hero has remained the same throughout time, even today. It's pretty cool. An event takes place that begins an adventure for the hero. Sometimes it's traumatic, like William Wallace losing his wife in Braveheart, or it is coincidental, like Simba meeting Nala. Either way, the hero begins his adventure. So Simba initially fights with Nala, but they soon realize they are friends. She tells him of Scar's reign, which begins Simba's quest to gain his father's kingdom back from Scar. William Wallace in Braveheart only begins to fight after his wife, Murren, on the right, is killed by the local British commander. Her death haunts him throughout the whole movie, in addition to sparking the beginning of his quest for freedom. King Arthur began his quest by drawing the sword from the stone. Not traumatic, of course, but surprising because Arthur was a lowly squire at the time. Luke Skywalker abruptly began his quest to fight the Empire when stormtroopers murdered his aunt and uncle. Luke left the farm and never returned, going on to become a Jedi Master. And then we have Moses, who had nothing left than God, Yahweh, appear in person to prompt Moses to go to Egypt and lead the Hebrews out of slavery. So there's that picture on the right. It's another portion of that Michelangelo painting in the Sistine Chapel. Yahweh, God, is on the left, telling a young Moses to return to Egypt and lead the Hebrews out of slavery. A hero needs an awesome weapon. In most hero stories, the hero has a special weapon, often one that only he can use. Luke has a lightsaber, an outdated weapon of the Jedi Knights. Here's a picture of Luke testing the lightsaber that Obi-Wan just gave him. The saber belonged to Luke's father. Only a Jedi can master this weapon. And then we have an illustration from the 1800s of Arthur receiving Excalibur from the Lady of the Lake. When Arthur died, Excalibur was thrown back into the lake because only Arthur could wield this weapon. Then we have Wallace with his sword. While it doesn't appear to be anything special, only he was allowed to carry it because it represented his power and prowess as a warrior. And then there's another picture of Michelangelo at the bottom. Another painting by Michelangelo at the bottom in the Sistine Chapel, depicting Moses at the Red Sea. See on the left, in yellow and green, that he's holding his staff over his right shoulder. That's the same one he used to perform miracles for Pharaoh, and also what Yahweh told him to raise to part and close the Red Sea. Heroes always seem to receive some sort of supernatural help, whether it be from a god, a wizard, or a spirit. Luke in Star Wars gets help from Ben even after Obi-Wan is slain by Darth Vader. Here's Obi-Wan healing Luke after Luke has been attacked by the Sand People. Obi-Wan has many powers that make him a wizard-like character, similar to Merlin, and he teaches Luke about the Force and later guides him from the spirit world. And then we have the most famous supernatural hero helper, and it's Merlin. He's a wizard and counselor for King Arthur. Merlin is very powerful in sorcery and can even change shapes. His command of the supernatural world benefits Arthur both as a boy, learning from Merlin, and later as a king. Simba sees his father's spirit and also gets help from Rafiki. We remember Rafiki. He's a medicine man type character. Rafiki is a supernatural force in The Lion King. He doesn't play as large a part as Merlin, but he does influence Simba and provide him with guidance. We have another picture by Michelangelo at the Sistine Chapel. It's of Moses first displaying the Ten Commandments, then destroying them after he sees the idol worship of his people. And look at the person standing behind him in blue and yellow. That's an angel representing Yahweh's supernatural help for Moses. A hero cannot just claim he's a hero and assume the position. We kind of understand that. We assume that. The hero has to prove himself. And has to prove himself to himself and to others that he is a true hero. For instance, Moses performs many miracles to free his people from Egypt, as well as help them survive the desert and reach Canaan. Luke faces Darth in a battle several times during the Star Wars trilogy. These battles, along with other services Luke provides for the rebellion, his training with Yoda, and his personal maturing are part of the trials he must successfully pass through to become a hero. And we have a picture of William Wallace in front of his men about to charge their enemy. Wallace's success in battle against overwhelming odds, along with his political ability, helped him to overcome the obstacles to freedom, which was his ultimate quest. And there's Arthur leading a charge in one of the many battles into which he led his men. Arthur's success in battle, just like Wallace's, is part of the proof of his heroic status. Leadership and courage allow the hero to overcome obstacles that lesser men could not. That's what heroes do. Moses proves himself to the Pharaoh by performing miracles that Pharaoh's magicians cannot equal, showing Moses' power through his God. Simba, like Luke, is immature at first and unable to be the hero he will eventually become. However, once Simba realizes Scar must be removed and Simba is the only one who can do it, Simba assumes his proper role as a hero and saves the land from evil Scar. The hero is always on some type of adventure with a purpose or a quest. He experiences many things on this quest, among which is a descent into a kind of hell. In this hell, he experiences a low point in his life that leaves him scarred forever with real or psychological wounds that will not heal. The hero learns from this descent into hell much about himself and usually matures greatly from the experience. Luke in Star Wars perhaps illustrates this stage the best. His quest, without knowing it at first, is to rescue his father from the dark side of the Force. Luke's descent into hell occurs when he decides to rescue his friends trapped on Cloud City. He leaves his Jedi training before it is completed to perform his rescue. Luke is not prepared to face Darth Vader, who is waiting for him at that place. So we see this scene in this picture above. Darth plans to trap Luke. In the duel that takes place between Luke and Darth, Luke loses his hand, and he chooses to jump to almost certain death rather than give in to Vader's proposal to join the dark side of the Force. Luke's loss of his right hand in the duel is his unhealable wound. Clearly, this is the lowest point in Luke's journey to become a Jedi Knight and save his father. His wound and this low point teach him about himself, and eventually help him to become a true hero. Other heroes suffer low points in their journeys. Arthur never recovers from the affair Guinevere has with Lancelot. William Wallace knew his execution would make him a martyr, so he was courageous as he was in his hell, the dungeon. Moses' doubt of himself and God caused him to suffer his unhealable wound, denial of entry into the promised land. Simba's descent into hell is combined with his defeat of Scar and the hyenas. And so you probably see all those flames that are in the background as he fights Scar. Simba symbolically goes where none of the other lions could go in order to help his tribe improve himself. Simba's unhealable wound was his past, where his courage failed him and his tribe will always haunt him. The word atonement means to offer payment for wrongdoing. Very often, heroes must avenge a father or make up for the father's evil. William Wallace's revolt was driven in part to avenge his father's death in the war with England. Indeed, the father's ghost haunts William Wallace's dreams throughout the movie. Moses' father, God, doesn't allow Moses into the promised land as a way of Moses atoning for his doubt, a situation that kind of reverses the traditional atonement by the hero for the father. The spirit of Mufasa, Simba's father, tells Simba to be strong and assume his place on the throne. Simba, who has been reluctant up to this point to return to his kingdom, realizes he has little choice but to avenge his father's murder. Arthur's father is unscrupulous and lustful. He uses his power to satisfy his personal urges, fathering Arthur deceitfully with a woman under a spell of Merlin that makes her think that Arthur's father is her husband. His father's evil legacy puts Arthur in a position to atone for his father's sins and be a good king, helping his people with selfless service. Luke Skywalker's ultimate quest is rescuing his father from the evil of the dark side. Here, in this picture, Luke consoles his dying father after his father saves Luke and atones for his own past by killing the Emperor, the leader of the Empire. And much like Arthur, Luke chooses to be good, the opposite of what his father chose, and therefore atones for his father's sins. Lastly, we have the reward. So after the hero's journeys are over, the hero is rewarded spiritually in some way. Normally, the hero achieves a life in bliss, often in a place with other heroes. Examples are really different at this point. The real William Wallace lives on in the spirit of his country, as shown by his statue in Stirling, Scotland. There's no indication of what happened to Simba, but we can infer from the appearance of his father's spirit that immortality awaits him. Arthur is called the once and future king for a good reason. Here's Arthur's being placed on his funeral ship. His body is set adrift to let the sea carry him off, but he is promised to return one day to reclaim his throne of England. This promise implies his spirit is waiting somewhere and is not really dead. His reward for his sacrifice is king. Here's the painting from the Sistine Chapel showing Moses' life. He's in two places in the shot, one on the left praying, and again on the right in blue being carried to heaven by angels. Even though he didn't get into the promised land, Moses' service to God gained him spiritual reward of heaven. And there's Obi-Wan, Yoda, and Anakin Skywalker in spirit form. They were all Jedi Knights and are now rewarded spiritually for being on the good side of the Force, implying that A Jedi like Luke will be rewarded when his body dies. So those are kind of the stages that all these heroes went through, and they're very, very similar, but they were written at very different time periods. And again, like what Carl Jung and Joseph Campbell assert in their studies is that we relate to these people, and that these stories show us how we can conquer any situation in our lives. And lastly, I used this presentation with permission from Brian Davis of Guthrie Public Schools. I thank him for his vast research on this topic of hero, journey, and archetype.